Why, hello. The big reveal.
Why, hello.
Why, hello.
Oh, James.
Excellent noses.
Okay.
Who are you and what have you done with Rory?
Hello.
Hello.
Yay.
Hello. This is just going to keep going, isn't it?
Excellent. Good faces, good. Oh, you were muted, Katie, but it was still excellent.
Oh, you're in the kitchen.
I know that was spontaneous, but Katie, that's actually a really nice.
Holy shit!
Hello.
Hello.
What?
Welcome.
Tanka.
You look like a two-headed thing.
Yes.
Wow!
I want to touch Malcolm.
I want to touch Malcolm.
Jesus. Can you touch him for both of us, Bracken?
Malcolm.
I'm taking commissions, I guess, then.
Can you hug him?
Malcolm, come nearer the screen.
Can you hug him? Can you hug him for us?
I can hug him. He
And
should
nearer.
have a drink.
Closer,
Yes.
closer. We want
And
to...
now both Bracken and Rory hug him on our
Oh my
behalf.
god, yes.
Oh, this is happening.
Yeah, as awkwardly as possible. Yes, yes, like that. Like
Oh,
that.
And now, could you lick his face?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good lick.
Actually, I won't because I've just eaten so much hummus and like.
We've all eaten so much hummus.
Malcolm loves that.
At this point,
Malcolm
given-
loves that.
Well, no, that's the thing.
Even.
I don't know where the hummus would end and Malcolm would begin.
Ah.
At this point, he's secreting it.
That's how we lost our last 3 Malcolms.
Turns out they weren't Malcolm at all. They were just hummus.
just 3 hummus in a trench coat.
Yeah.
But they were not
Big bag of
hate.
chickpeas.
What?
Oh my god. Wow, this is
Overwhelming.
this is overwhelming. This is
Ainsley.
this is blowing my ears right back. Ainsley's here. Okay, so who have we got here? We've got Katie and Nick. We've got Katie and we've got Nick.
Ainsley, you have such a nice
Casey's
face.
baking something.
Katie, what are you baking? Hot
chocolate.
chocolate.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh.
Katie, you're looking very cute
You should
today.
put some rum in it. Rum. Just saying.
Drinking.
Oh, we've got Duncan.
Bina! Duncan!
Hi, Bina. Ainsley.
Ainsley! Hi, Ainsley.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. I'm falling.
Yeah,
very
sorry.
much off,
I
very
shoved
much
my
off
big
this.
ass.
It's colonizing my chair.
Yes.
So,
Hi.
how is you okay, hun?
I'm cool.
You're very cool. How's everybody? How are you all?
Intensely jealous of this whole having other human beings around thing.
Oh,
very nice.
sweet pea.
One day.
That is absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Oh, Duncan, this one's for you. This one's for you. Oh, so many hugs for Duncan.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh.
it won't be long now.
Yeah.
It won't be long now.
We just broke out of our 5k limit. We're now allowed anywhere in the county. Unfortunately, I literally don't know anybody in my county.
Now's the time to get to know them.
Yeah.
Make friends.
Knocking on doors.
If the weather's good on, if the weather's good on Thursday, I'm meeting a friend of mine for a beer on the bridge between Dublin and.
Yay!
Hey,
Nice.
that's so romantic.
Duncan, just like seeing people in their yard and going up to the fence, just go, "Hi, my name's Duncan. Do you want to play?"
That's actually so wholesome.
Well,
So what I've been doing has just been to approach people with dogs in the park and be like, "Can I say hello to your dog?" and say hello to the dog, and then eventually, sometimes the human talks to you, and sometimes you have a conversation.
Nice.
It's nice.
Does the dog ever talk to you?
In their own ways.
Good answer.
Dog's like, I'm right here, you know.
Wait, where's the dog Terry?
Because he's a hound.
Terry is clearly a cat person, but like a shitty cat person who'd like get them deep and stuff.
Like Cat Person from the short story Cat Person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm. We have more people.
Lots of people.
We have Martin.
Ashra.
Hi, Martin. We have Ashra. Hi, Ashra. Hi,
Such cool
Lyric.
glasses.
Oh, yeah, Ashra, your glasses, they're the same every time, but they
Still
continue to
cool.
be cool as fuck.
Lyric.
We've got Andy.
Hidden Andy.
Hidden Andy. Secret Andy. Andy.
Secret Andy isn't safe.
I've been meeting several neighbours recently by the fairly simple expedient of going over to them and saying, I have a very heavy thing in my car, can you please help me lift it? And they all have. No. Rory, I have a heavy thing I need lifting.
Oh.
I'm on my way.
Yeah.
You're in the bag.
Are you just hiding lots of bodies, Frankie?
Zosie.
That's why the cupboard was so heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Squishing you off again.
You know, cupboard, coffin, it's all semantics.
One man's cupboard is another man's coffin. Is that a saying?
One
Yeah,
woman's
a coffin
cupboard
is
is
just Tupperware.
several men's coffins.
I did find a bookshelf that converts
I was
into
about
a
to say
coffin,
that.
and I love it.
What was that?
Oh,
Ainsley?
Ainsley,
I found a designer who made a bookshelf that converts into a coffin,
Yes.
and I love it.
Also, of
Yeah.
course, Ainsley's a man.
yeah,
It's very me.
yeah.
It's great.
It's a perfect storage solution for displaying your books and your corpses all at once.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you die, you don't need to store your books. You need to give your books to other people. So then what do you do with your bookshelves?
Oh, I just assumed it was going to be like a Neolithic burial thing where like they go with you in the.
I mean, you could do that.
You could.
Not you will.
Like it's going to be pretty boring down there.
For
You'll
the
need some
books.
books
Yeah.
to keep
Oh,
you
right, yeah.
entertained. Set
You get
them on
very
fire.
cool ones you haven't got around to reading yet.
When I die, my kind of I would like to have like basically just a big book giveaway, like all of my books put into a room, and just anybody who like knows me or or likes me or hates me, whatever, anyone can come and just like take a book, like have a book on me, and then the books go and like continue their life, and then they have like a book to remember me by.
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice.
Hey, someone who writes your name in their books, because that would make that extra cute. Because then, like 50 years later or whatever, someone will be like, Frankie Porter. I don't know why I have 3 of this person's books. I think my gran gave them to me, but there's something so nice about this. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, but both really nice and extremely metal. Like home is from the Library of the Dead.
But it doesn't. It
And
doesn't
they have
quite
this
have.
image of you from the books, and yeah.
It
From
doesn't
the
quite have.
collection of Jürgen Leitner.
It doesn't quite have the same effect when you can just look up their YouTube channel, does it?
The YouTube channel.
It makes it even better. I mean, none of the old books with people's names in them that I have have YouTube channels associated with them.
Storytime.
Holy shit, that was cute.
That was so cute.
Okay. You're going to meet you. Hi, Carmen. Hi, Mike. Secret Carmen. Secret Mike. Now, everybody. Now, all of the bodies. So, if you remember, Vian has something to explain to Thierry. So, shall we dive in? Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Listen, Thierry, I need to explain. He looked at me. Explain what? The name on my passport. The name I'll have to give at the registry office. I took a breath. It's not the name I'm using now. I changed it. It's a long story. I should have told you before, but Thierry interrupted me. It doesn't matter. No need to explain. We all have things we'd rather not talk about. What do I care if you changed your name? It's who you are that interests me, not whether you're a Francine or a Marie-Claude or even, God help us, a Cunégonde. I smiled. You don't mind? He shook his head. I promised I wouldn't interrogate you. The past is the past. I don't need to know. Unless you're about to tell me you used to be a man or something. I laughed. You're safe enough. I suppose I could check, just to be sure. His hands locked in the small of my back. His kiss was harder, more demanding. Thierry never makes demands. His old-fashioned courtesy is one of the things that has always appealed to me, but today he is slightly different. There's a hint of passions long contained, impatience, a thirst for something more. For a moment, I am submerged in it. His hands move to my waist, my breasts. There is something almost childishly greedy in the way he kisses my mouth, my face, as if he's trying to lay claim to as much of me as possible. And all the time he is whispering, I love you, Jan. I want you, Jan. Half laughing, I came up for air. Not here. It's past 9:30. He gave a comic bear's growl. You think I'm going to wait 7 weeks? And now his arms were bearish too, holding me in a close lock. And he smelt of musk sweat and stale cigars. And all at once, and for the first time in our long friendship, I could imagine us making love, naked and sweating between the sheets. I felt a jolt of sudden surprise at the sense of revolt the thought provoked. I pushed my hands against his chest. Thierry, please. He showed his teeth. Zosie's going to be here in a minute. Then let's go upstairs before she does. Already I was gasping for breath. The reek of sweat intensified, mingled with the scent of cold coffee, raw wool, and last night's beer. No longer such a comforting scent. It calls up images of crowded bars and narrow escapes and drunken strangers in the night. Thierry's hands are slab-like and eager, spattered with age spots, tufted with hair. I found myself thinking of Rue's hands, his deft pickpocket's fingers, machine oil under the fingernails. Come on, Jan. He was pulling me across the room. His eyes were bright with anticipation. Suddenly, I wanted to protest, but it's too late. I've made my choice. There can be no going back, I thought. I followed him toward the stairs. A light bulb blew with a sound like a firecracker going off. Pulverized glass showered us. A sound from upstairs. Rosette was awake. Relief made me tremble. Thierry swore. I have to see to Rosette, I said. He made a sound that was not quite laughter. A final kiss, But the moment had passed. From the corner of my eye, I could see a golden something gleaming in the shadows. Sunlight, perhaps, or some kind of reflection. I have to see to Rosette, Thierry. I love you, he said. I know you do. It was 10 o'clock and Thierry had just left when Zosie came in, wrapped up in an overcoat, wearing purple platform boots and carrying a large cardboard box in both hands. It looked heavy, and Zosie was a little flushed as she put it down carefully on the floor. Sorry I'm late, she said. This stuff is heavy. What is it? I said. Zosie grinned. She went to the window display and took out the red shoes that had been sitting there for the past couple of weeks. I've been thinking we're due for a bit of a change. How about a new display? I mean, this was never meant to be a permanent thing, and to be honest, I miss these shoes. I smiled at that. Of course, I said. So I picked up this stuff from the Marché aux Puces. She indicated the cardboard box. I've got an idea I'd like to try out. I looked at the box, then at Zosie. Still reeling from Thierry's visit, Rue's reappearance and the complications that I knew it would bring, the unexpected kindness of the simple gesture left me suddenly close to tears. You didn't have to do that, Zosie. Don't be silly. I like it. She looked at me closely. Is anything wrong? Oh, it's Thierry. I tried to smile. He's been acting strangely these past few days. She shrugged. I'm not surprised, she said. You're doing well. Business is good. At last things are looking up for you. I frowned at her. What do you mean? What I mean, said Zosie patiently, is that Thierry still wants to be Santa Claus and Prince Charming and Good King Wenceslas all rolled into one. It was fine while you were struggling. He bought you dinner, dressed you up, showered you with presents. But you're different now. You don't need saving anymore. Someone took away his Cinderella doll and put a real live girl there instead, and he's having trouble coping with it. Thierry's not like that, I said. Isn't he? Well, I grinned. Maybe a bit. She laughed at that, and I laughed with her, though I couldn't help feeling a little abashed. Zosie is very observant, of course, but shouldn't I have seen those things myself? Zosie opened the cardboard box. Why not take it easy today? Have a lie down, play with Rosette. Don't worry. If he comes, I'll call. That startled me. If who comes? I said. Oh, really, Vianne, don't call me that. She grinned. Well, Rue, of course. Who did you think I meant, the Pope? I gave a wan smile. He won't come today. What makes you so sure? So I told her what Thierry had said, about the flat and how determined he was to see us there by Christmas, and about the plane tickets to New York and how he'd offered Rue a job at Rue de la Croix. Zosie looked surprised at that. He has? She said. Well, if Rue takes it, he must need the money. I can't see him doing it for love. I shook my head. What a mess, I said. Why didn't he say he was coming here? I would have handled it differently. At least I would have been prepared. Zosie sat down at the kitchen table. He's Rosette's father, isn't he? I didn't say anything, but turned to switch on the ovens. I was planning to bat a batch of gingerbread biscuits, the sort you hang on the Christmas tree. Gilded and iced and tied with coloured ribbon. Of course, it's your business, Zosie went on. Does Annie know? I shook my head. Does anyone know? Does Rue know? Suddenly my strength had gone, and I sat down quickly in one of the chairs, feeling as if she had cut my strings, leaving me in a sudden tangle, voiceless, helpless and still. I can't tell him now, I whispered at last. Well, he's no fool. He'll work it out. Silently, I shook my head. It's the first time that I have had any cause to feel grateful for Rosette's differences. But at nearly 4 years old, she still looks and behaves like a child of 2.5. And who would believe the impossible? It's too late for all that, I said. 4 years ago, maybe, but not now. Why? Did you quarrel? She sounds like a nuke. I found myself trying to explain to her, too, that things are not simple, that houses must be made of stone, because when the wind comes howling by, only solid stone will keep us from blowing away. Why pretend, he says in my mind. What is it that makes you try to fit in? What is it about these people that makes you want to be like them? No, we didn't quarrel, I said. We just went different ways. A sudden startling image in my mind. The Pied Piper with his flute, all the children following, but for the lame one left behind as the mountain closes in his wake. So what about Thierry? She said. Good question, I thought. Does he suspect? He's no fool either, and yet there's a kind of blindness in him, which might be arrogance or trust, or a little of both. And yet he's still suspicious of Rue. I saw it last night, that measuring look, the instinctive aversion of the solid city dweller for the drifter, the gypsy, the traveller. You choose your family, Vianne, I thought. Well, I guess you've made your choice. It's the right one. I know it is. But I could tell she didn't believe me. As if she could see it in the air around me, like candy floss gathering on a spindle. But there are so many kinds of love. And when the hot, selfish, angry kind has long since burnt itself out, thank all the gods for men like Thierry, those safe and unimaginative men who think passion is just a word from books, like magic or adventure. Another one for your list, Rory. Zosie was still watching me with that patient half smile, as if she expected me to say something more. When I didn't, she simply shrugged and held out a dish of mendiant. She makes them as I do myself, the chocolate thin enough to snap, but thick enough to satisfy. A generous sprinkle of fat raisins, a walnut, an almond, a violet, a crystallized rose. Try one, she says. What do you think? The gunpowder scent of chocolate arose from the little dish of mendiant, smelling of summer and lost time. He had tasted of chocolate when I first kissed him, and the scent of damp grass had come from the ground where we had laid side by side, and his touch had been unexpectedly soft, and his hair like summer marigolds in the dying light. Zosie was still holding out the little dish of mendiant. It's made of blue Murano glass with a little gold flower on the side. It's only a bauble, and yet I'm fond of it. Rue gave it to me in Lansquenet, and I have carried it with me ever since, in my luggage, in my pockets, like a touchstone. I looked up and saw Zosie looking at me. Her eyes were a distant fairy tale blue, like something you might see in dreams. You won't tell anyone, I said. Of course not. She picked up a chocolate between delicate fingers and held it out for me to take. Rich, dark chocolate, rum-soaked raisins, vanilla, rose, and cinnamon. Try one, Vianne, she said with a smile. I happen to know they're your favourites. Chapter 4. Zosie. Monday, 3rd of December. A good day's work, if I say so myself. So much of my work here is a juggling act. A series of balls and blades and flaming torches to be kept in the air for as long as it takes. It took some time to be sure of Rue. He's sharp enough to cut, that one, and needs careful handling, and it was all I could do to make him stay. But I managed to hold him on Saturday night, and with the help of a few encouraging words, I've managed to keep him in check so far. It wasn't easy, I have to say. His first impulse was to head straight back to where he'd come from, never to be seen again. I didn't need to look at his colours to know. I could see it in his face as he marched down the butte with his hair in his eyes and his hands stuck fiercely into his pockets. Thierry was following him too, and I was forced to clear the way with a little cantrip to make him slip, and in the seconds that he was delayed, caught up with Rue and took his arm. Rue, I told him, you can't just leave. There are things you don't know about all of this. He shook off my arm without slowing down. What makes you think I want to know? Because you're in love with her, I said. Rue just shrugged and kept on walking. And because she's having second thoughts, but she doesn't know how to tell Thierry. Now he was listening. He slackened his pace. I seized the opportunity and made the claw sign of one jaguar right at his back. A cantrip that should have stopped him dead, but which Rue just shook off instinctively. Hey, stop it, I said, more in frustration than anything else. He shot me a look of feral curiosity. You need to give her time. What for? To make up her mind what she really wants. He had stopped walking altogether now and was watching with new intensity. I felt a twitch of annoyance at that. He was so obviously blind to anyone who wasn't Vianne. But there'd be time for that later. For the moment, I just needed him here, I told myself. After that, I could make him pay at leisure. Meanwhile, however, Thierry had picked himself up and was heading towards us down the street. We don't have time for this now, I said. Meet me Monday, after work. Work, he said. He began to laugh. You think I'm going to work for him? You better, I said, if you want my help. After that, I had just enough time to rejoin Thierry as he approached. Barely a few dozen yards away, and hulking in his cashmere coat, he glared at me, and at Rue behind me, with the black button-eyed ferocity of a big plush bear gone suddenly rogue. You've blown it now, I told him softly. What possessed you to behave like that? Jan's very upset. He bridled at that. What did I do? It was Never mind what did I do. I can help you, but you have to be nice. Savagely, I made the sign of Lady Blood Moon with my fingertips. That seemed to calm him. He looked dismayed. I shot him again, this time with the masterful sign of one jaguar, and saw his colours subside a little. He's so much easier than Rue, I thought. So much more cooperative. In a few words, I told him the plan. It's simple, I said. There's no way you can lose. It makes you look magnanimous. You'll have the help you'll need in the flat. You'll see more of Jan. And what's more, I lowered my voice again, you can keep an eye on him. Well, that did it. I knew it would. That delightful combination of vanity, suspicion, and supreme self-confidence. I hardly needed glamours at all. He did it all so well himself. Yes, I'm almost getting to like Thierry. So comfortable, so predictable, with no sharp edges on which to be cut. Best of all, he's so easily charmed. A smile, a word, and he's all mine. Unlike Rue, with his sullen mouth and look of permanent suspicion. Damn him, I thought. What's wrong with me? I look like Vian. I talk like Vian. He should have been a pushover. Some people are just tougher than others, and my timing so far has been all wrong. Still, I can wait. For a few days at least. And if glamours won't work, then chemicals will. Today I waited for closing time impatiently, with an eye to the clock. It seemed to me like a very long day, but I spent it pleasantly enough, while outside the rain turned slowly to mist and the people went by like folk in a dream, occasionally stopping to stare blurrily at the half-finished window display that shines out now from Les Roches de Montmartre like a magic lantern show. Never underestimate the power of a window display. The eyes are the windows of the soul, they say, and a display window should be the eyes of the shop, gleaming with promise and delight. The old display was pretty enough, with my red shoes filled with chocolates, but I'm aware that with Christmas approaching in giant strides, we must think of something more enchanting than mere footwear if we are to bring the customers in. And so our window has become an advent calendar, draped with scrap silk and lit with a single yellow lantern. The calendar itself is made out of an antiques doll's home that I found in the Marché aux Puces. Too old to attract a child, too decrepit to be of any interest to a collector, its roof badly glued together, its front cracked and mended with masking tape, it was precisely what I had been looking for. It is large, large enough to fill the window, with a sloping beveled roof and a painted facade with 4 lift-out panels to spy inside. For the present, all the panels are shut, and I have placed blinds in the windows, under which we can just glimpse the comforting golden light from inside. "Wow," said Vian when she saw me at work. "What is it, a nativity?" I grinned. "Not quite. It's a surprise." So today I worked as fast as I could, shielding the window from prying eyes with the help of a large piece of red and gold sari silk behind which the transformation was to occur. I started with the scenery. Around the house, I constructed a miniature garden. A lake made from a swatch of blue silk with chocolate ducks floating across it. A river, a path made from coloured sugar crystals, lined with trees and bushes made from tissue paper and pipe cleaners. Everything dusted with icing sugar snow, and with multicoloured sugar mice running out of the Advent house like something out of a fairy tale. It took me the best part of the morning to put all the scenery in place. Just before 12, Nico came in with Alice. They seemed to be inseparable now, and stayed to admire the window. He bought another box of his macaroons, while Alice watched wide-eyed as I piped the repairs and improvements to the house's facade with a thin-nozzled icing sugar bag. "It's gorgeous," said Alice. "It's better than the Galerie Lafayette." I have to admit it's a splendid confection. Part house, part cake, with sugar fluting around the windows, sugar gargoyles on the roof, sugar pillars around the doors, and a neat little cap of snow on each window ledge and on the beveled chimney tops. At lunchtime, I called Vianne in to look. "Do you like it?" I said. "It's not finished yet, but what do you think?" For a while, she said nothing at all. But her colours had already told me everything I needed to know, flaring so bright they almost filled the room. And were there tears in her eyes? Yes. I thought perhaps there were. "Fabulous," she said at last. "Just fabulous." I feigned modesty. "Oh, you know, I mean it, Zosie. You've helped me so much." I thought she looked troubled. As well she might. The sign of Ehekatl is a powerful one, speaking of journeys, change, the wind. And she must sense it working around her, maybe even in her now. My mendiants are special in so many ways. Its chemistries mingling with her own, changing, becoming volatile. "And I don't even pay you a decent wage," she said. "Pay me in kind," I suggested, grinning. "All the chocolates I can eat." Vianne shook her head, frowning, seeming to listen for something outside. But the fog had swallowed any sound. "I owe you so much," she went on at last, "and I've never done a thing for you." She stopped, as if she'd heard a noise, or had an idea so arresting that it temporarily robbed her of speech. That'll be the mendiant again, her favourites, reminding her of happier times. "I know," she said, her face brightening. "You could move in here. Move in with us. There's Madame Poussin's old rooms. No one's using them just now. It isn't much, but it's better than a bed and breakfast. You could stay with us, eat with us. The kids would love it. We don't need the space, and at Christmas, when we move out..." Her face fell, but just a little. "I'd be in the way," I said, shaking my head. "You wouldn't. I promise. We'd work all hours. You'd be doing us a favour." "What about Thierry?" I said. "What about him?" said Vianne with a touch of defiance. "We're doing what he wants, aren't we? Moving into Rue de la Croix? Why shouldn't you stay with us until then? And when we move out, you can look after the shop. Make sure everything's all right. He practically suggested it anyway. He said I'd need a manager." I seemed to consider it a while. Is Thierry getting impatient? I thought. Has he shown her his wilder side? I have to say I'd suspected as much. And now that Rue has turned up again, she needs to keep them both at arm's length, at least until she makes up her mind. A chaperone. That's what she needs. And what better choice than her friend Zosie? But you've only just met me, I told her at last. I could be anyone. She laughed. No, you couldn't. Shows what you know. All right, I said. We've got a deal. Once more, I was in. Chapter 5. Anouk. Tuesday, 4th of December. So there it is. She's moving in. How cool is that? As Jean-Loup would say. She brought her stuff round yesterday. What there was of it, anyway. I've never seen anyone travel so light, except maybe for me and Maman in the days when we were on the road. 2 suitcases, one of shoes, the other filled with everything else. 10 minutes to unpack, and already it feels like she's been here forever. Her room is still full of Madame Poussin's old furniture. Old lady furniture with a skinny armoire that smells of mothballs and the chest of drawers full of big scratchy blankets. The curtains are brown and cream with a pattern of roses, and there's a saggy bed with a horsehair bolster and a speckled mirror that makes everyone look like they have the plague. An old lady's room, but trust Zosie to make it cool again in no time at all. I helped her unpack her things last night and gave her one of the sandalwood sachets from my wardrobe to help get rid of the old lady smell. That's all right, she said, smiling as she hung up her clothes in the old armoire. I've brought some things to cheer the place up. What things? You'll see. And we did. While Maman prepared dinner and I took Rosette to see the nativity again, Zosie worked on the room upstairs. It didn't take her more than an hour, but when I went up later to see, you wouldn't have recognized the place. The old lady brown patterned curtains were gone, replaced by a couple of big loose squares of sari material, one red, one blue. She'd used another one. This one was purple with silver thread to cover the fluffy old lady bedspread, and there was a double string of little coloured lights over the mantelpiece, where she'd lined up her shoes pair by pair, like ornaments over the fire. There was a rag rug too, and a lamp where she'd hung all of her earrings like danglers from the bottom of the shade. And one of her hats was pinned to the wall where a picture used to be. And there was a Chinese silk dressing gown hanging behind the door, and a row of jewelled butterflies, like the ones she sometimes wears in her hair, clipped all around the edges of the plaguey mirror. Wow, I said. I love this room. And there was a scent too, something very sweet and churchy that reminded me somehow of Lansquenet. That's frankincense, Nanu, she said. I always burn it in my rooms. It was proper incense too, the kind you burn over hot coals. We used to burn it, Maman and I, though nowadays we never do. Too messy, perhaps, but it smells so good. And besides, Zosie's kind of disorder seems to make more sense than anyone else's idea of tidiness. Then Zosie brought out a bottle of grenadine from somewhere at the bottom of her suitcase, and we all had a kind of party downstairs, with chocolate cake and ice cream for Rosette, and by the time I was ready for bed, it was nearly midnight, and Rosette was asleep on a beanbag, and Maman was cleaning the dishes away. And as I looked at Zosie then, Zosie with her long hair and her bracelet with all the little charms, and her eyes lit up like fairy lights. It was just like seeing Maman again, but the way she was in Lansquenet, in the days when she was still Viens Rocher. So what do you think of my Advent house? That's the new display, you know, to make up for losing the Lollipop shoes. It's a house, and at first I thought it was going to be a crèche, like in the Place du Théâtre, with the Jesus baby and the kings and all his family and friends. But actually it's better than that. It's a magical house in a fairy wood, just like in the storybooks. And every day there's going to be a different scene opening up behind one of the doors. Today it's the Pied Piper, and the story's mostly outside the house, with sugar mice instead of rats in pink and white and green and blue, and the piper made from a wooden clothes peg, with painted red hair and a matchstick in his hand for a flute, piping all the sugar mice into a river made of silk. And inside the house, there's the mayor of Hamelin, the one who wouldn't pay the piper, looking out of a bedroom window. He's a peg doll too, of course, with a nightgown made from a handkerchief and a paper nightcap on his head, and his face drawn on in felt-tip pen, with his mouth wide open in surprise. And I don't know why, but somehow the Pied Piper reminds me of Roux, with his red hair and shabby clothes, and the greedy old mayor makes me think of Thierry. And I couldn't help thinking that, like the Nativity in Place du Théâtre, it wasn't just a window display, that it had to mean something more. I love it, I said. I hoped you would. On the beanbag, Rosette made a sleepy little snuffling noise and reached for her blanket, which had fallen on the floor. Zosie found it and put it over her. She stopped for a moment to touch Rosette's hair. And then I had a weird thought. More than that, an inspiration. I guess it was the Advent house, but I was thinking about the Nativity and the way everyone comes to the stable at once. The animals and the magi and the shepherds and angels and the star, without anyone having to invite them or anything, as if they'd been summoned there by magic. I almost told Zosie right then. But I needed time to sort myself out, to make sure I wasn't about to do anything stupid. You see, I'd remembered something too. Something that happened a long time ago, back in the days when we were still different. Something to do with Rosette, perhaps. Poor Rosette, who cried like a cat and who never seemed to feed at all, and sometimes stopped breathing without any reason, for seconds, even minutes at a time. The baby, the crib, the animals, the angels and the magi. What is a magus, anyway? And why do I think I've met one before? Chapter 6. Zosie. Tuesday, 4th of December. Meanwhile, I still had to deal with Roux. My plans for him do not involve contact with Vianne, but I do need him to stay close. And so, as planned, at 5:30, I went down to Rue de la Croix and waited for him to come out. It was closer to 6 when he left the house. Thierry's taxi had already arrived. He's staying in a nice hotel while work on the flat is underway. But Thierry had not yet left the flat, and I was able to watch from a discreet little vantage point on the corner as Roux waited with his hands in his pockets and his collar turned up against the rain. Now, Thierry has always rather prided himself on being a man of no pretensions. A real man who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, and who would never make another man feel inferior for lack of money or social status. This is quite untrue, of course. Thierry's a snob of the worst kind. He just doesn't know it, that's all. But it's in his manner all the same, in the way he always calls Laurent mon pote, and I could see it now in the careless way he took his time locking up the flat, checking, setting the security alarm, then turning to Rue with a look of surprise, as if to say, "Ah, yes, I forgot." "How much did we call it? 100? he asked. 100 euros a day, I thought. Not an especially generous sum. But Rue just gave that shrug of his, the shrug that so infuriates Thierry and makes him want to force a reaction. Rue, in contrast, is very cool, a gas jet turned to its lowest flame. But I noticed that he kept his eyes slightly lowered throughout, as if afraid of what he might reveal. "Check, all right?" Thierry said. Nice touch, I thought. Of course, he must know that Rue has no bank account, that Rue pays no taxes, that Rue may not even be his name. "Or would you rather have cash?" he said. Rue shrugged again. "Whatever," he said, willing to forfeit a whole day's wages rather than concede a point. Thierry gave his broadest smile. "All right, I'll give you a check," he said. "I'm a bit tight on cash today. Sure you don't mind?" Rue's colours flared, but he kept stubbornly silent. "Who shall I make it to?" "Leave it blank." Still smiling, Thierry took his time writing the cheque, then gave it to Rue with a cheery wink. "See you same time tomorrow, then. Unless you've had enough, that is." Rue shook his head. "All right, then. 8:30. Don't be late." And then he was off in his taxicab, leaving Rue with his useless cheque, apparently too lost in his thoughts to notice me as I approached. "Rue," I said. "Viens?" He turned and shot me that Christmas tree smile. "Oh, it's you." His face fell. "The name's Zosie." I gave him a look. "And you could work on your charm a bit." "Sorry?" "I mean, you could at least pretend to be pleased to see me." "Oh, sorry." He looked abashed. "So how's the job?" "Not bad," he said. I smiled at that. "Come on," I said. "Let's find somewhere dry to talk. Where are you staying?" He named a backstreet dive off Rue de Clichy, just the kind of place I'd expect. "Let's go there. I don't have long." I knew the place. It was cheap and grubby looking, but it did take cash, which matters a lot to someone like Rue. There was no key to the front door, but an electronic keypad with a code. I watched him enter it, 825436. His profile lit sharply in the crude orange of the streetlight. File that away for later use. Codes of all kinds are useful, I thought. We went inside. I saw his room. A dark interior, a carpet that felt slightly sticky beneath my feet, a square cell the colour of old chewing gum with a single bed and not much else. No window, no chair, just a sink, a radiator and a bad print on the wall. Well, said Rue. Try these, I said. I took out a small gift-wrapped box from my coat and handed it to him. I made them myself. On the house. Thanks, he said sourly, and dropped the box onto the bed without giving it a second glance. Once more I felt a sting of annoyance. 1 truffle, I thought. Is that too much to ask? The symbols on the box were powerful. I'd used the red circle of Lady Blood Moon, the seductress, the eater of hearts. But just one taste of what was inside would make him so much easier to persuade. So, when can I call? Said Rue impatiently. I sat down on the end of the bed. It's complicated, I began. You took her by surprise, you know. Turning up the way you did, out of the blue, especially when she's with someone else. He laughed at that, a bitter sound. Ah, yes, le tressé, Mr. Big. Don't worry, I'll cash the cheque for you. He looked at me. You know about that? I know Thierry. He's the kind of man who can't even shake another man's hand without seeing how many bones he can break. And he's jealous of you. Jealous? Of course. He grinned, looking genuinely amused for a second. Because I've got everything, haven't I? The money, the looks, the place in the country. You've got more than that, I told him. What? She loves you, Rue. For a second, he didn't say anything. He didn't even look at me, but I could see the tension in his body and the accompanying flare of his colours, from gas jet blue to neon red, and I knew that I had shaken him. She told you that? He said at last. No, not quite. But I know it's true. There was a Pyrex glass beside the sink. He filled it with water and drank it in one, then took a deep breath and filled it again. So if that's the way she feels, he said, then why is she marrying Le Tressé? I smiled and held out the little box, from which the red circle of Lady Blood Moon lit his face with a carnival glow. Sure you won't have a chocolate? Impatiently, he shook his head. All right, I said. Just tell me this. When you first saw me, you called me Vianne. Why was that? I told you before. You looked like her. Well, at least the way she used to be. Used to be? She's different now, he said. Her hair, her clothes. That's right, I said. That's Thierry's influence. He's a total control freak, insanely jealous, always wanting things his way. At first he was great. He helped with the kids. He gave her presents, expensive ones. Then he began to pressure her. Now he tells her what to wear, how to behave, even how to raise her children. Of course, it doesn't help that he's her landlord and could throw her out at any time. Rue frowned, and I could see that I was finally getting to him. I could see doubt in his colours and, more promisingly, the first flowering of anger. So, why didn't she tell me? Why didn't she write? Maybe she was afraid, I said. Afraid? Of him? Perhaps, I said. Now I could see him thinking hard. Head lowered, eyes creased in concentration. For some strange reason, he doesn't trust me, and yet I know he'll take the bait. for her sake, for Vianne Rocher. I'll go and see her. Talk to her. That would be a big mistake. Why? She doesn't want to see you yet. You have to give her time. You can't just turn up out of the blue and expect her to make a choice. His eyes told me that was precisely what he'd expected. I put a hand on his arm. Listen, I said, I'll talk to her. I'll try and make her see things your way. But no more visits, no letters, no calls. Trust me on this. Why should I? He said. Well, I knew he wouldn't be easy, but this was getting ridiculous. I allowed an edge to enter my voice. Why? Because I'm her friend and I care what happens to her and the kids. And if you just stop thinking about your wounded feelings for a minute, you'd see why she needs some time to think. I mean, where have you been for the past 4 years? And how does she know you won't take off again? Thierry isn't perfect, of course, but he's here and he's dependable, which is more than could be said of you. Some folk respond better to abrasiveness than charm. Roux is obviously one of these, because he sounded more civil then than at any other time he'd spoken to me. I see, he said. I'm sorry, Sosie. So you'll do as I say? Otherwise, there's no point in me even trying to help you. He nodded. You mean it? Yeah. I gave a sigh. The hard part was done. A pity, in a way, I thought. In spite of everything, I find him rather attractive. But for every favour the gods bestow, there has to be a sacrifice. And of course, by the end of the month, I'll be asking for a significant favour. Da da da. Well then.
Well then.
Well then.
The fuck?
Right?
Well then, well then, well then.
Very Shakespearean.
Also, by the way, so just either today or yesterday, I don't know what is time, I finished rereading and parceling up this. So I now know what the end date is, and you're going to love the ending of this. The ending of this is so exciting and tense. I'm properly excited about finishing this book. In 2.5 weeks' time.
Would you like to see Nick and I's current adorable project?
Always.
Yes. We are making some dungarees for our newest niece out of this completely adorable fabric.
Oh my
wow.
god, it's got
So cute.
llamas, alpacas.
And cacti. And little tiny saddles. Oh my god.
That is
So
so cute.
Yeah.
And eye patches. Oh no, not
No.
quite.
No.
No, what have they got on them?
That is
Okay.
adorable.
Funny little things.
That's so cute. Ainsley, what are you making?
I'm destroying things.
Ooh.
I'm
That's even more
Ooh.
fun.
taking apart things that I didn't like and rewinding the yarn into plain old balls.
Nice. That sounds thoroughly
I'm
satisfying.
looking through a pile of yarn to decide what to make a blanket for my sister's imminent baby with.
Aww, cute.
How wholesome.
Aw.
How wholesome everyone is being. Oh, and Bracken and Rory and Malcolm.
Aw.
Who else have we got? Hi, Ian.
Hi,
I didn't
Ian.
see you before. Hi, Ian. Oh, I think I saw Ian an email pop up from Ian sending me his picture for the collage. So here is a prompt, a reminder to anyone, almost everybody who hasn't yet sent me. If you would like to be involved in it, obviously there is no obligation, but I would very much like it. So get your pictures across to me.
Frankie, do you want the place we most often listen to Storytime? Because, like, even today you've been in like 4 different places in my house.
The most aesthetic.
Yeah,
Most
whatever-
aesthetic. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, definitely like points for aesthetic or unusual.
We might send you another one another day then.
Ooh, how exciting then. Yeah,
with a fire.
Feel free to anyone who wants to like send me multiple options and I will just pick one. And yes, thank you very much to Malcolm and Katie and Nick and Ian for sending me theirs.
When I finish cutting out and I'm in the sewing bit, you can be in this aesthetic corner.
Oh
yeah,
that is so, yes, I would like that very much. Now, les enfants, I'm going to run off because I am having a night away from Zach tonight.
Testing out the new flat.
Testing out the new flat.
Take a hot water bottle. It's likely to be cold if there's no one living in it.
It's
Be fine.
I think it's going to be potentially uncomfortably warm. Actually,
In a block of flats.
I haven't quite figured out the heating, and so every time I've gone in there, I've been like, "Oh, it's quite toasty in here." So it's possible that I will once again have a terrible night's sleep. But as long as you get a good night's sleep,
fine,
that
then.
would be fine.
Yeah.
As you're going back to Zach's tomorrow, does that mean there will be cinnamon buns?
No, we've agreed this.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
only when you're coming back from out of town.
Yes.
Not
that's
every
fair.
time you come back to my flat.
Yeah.
What, Zach?
Otherwise, that would be like every other day.
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed.
Fair.
So is Frankie.
Picture of the grill pan.
Oh my god, yes.
I've taken the picture to send Ainsley.
Ainsley, we found a grill pan on somebody's front
Like
wall.
a grill, like plate that's about 1/2 meter long.
It's
Amazing.
Really cool.
Somebody had left it out because it was all like
A bit rusty.
charcoaled and shit. So we
Aren't they lazy?
Right?
so lazy. It took like not much to get it clean.
I've just deglazed it and it's really cool.
Oh, you did it. Amazing.
So
It's really cool.
I'm gonna send you a picture.
Yeah.
Pictures. Yes.
Catch up crew.
Catch up crew. Catch up crew.
Catch up crew.
Catch up crew. Catch up crew. We love you. I hope you enjoyed this. Send me your pictures for my birthday collage. I love you. Love you, catch up crew. Good night. Bye. Boop, 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 ba-doo, doo, doo.